Today is a historic day for India's conservation history because in a few minutes from now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to release 8 Namibian cheetahs in the confines of Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh. Uh, Hello, I am Rajat Ghai. I am Associate Editor with Down to Earth. And joining me is Shuchita Jha, the wildlife and forestry correspondent for Down to Earth. Hi, Shuchita. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Rajat. Thank you.
Before we proceed, let me give a small history, a small snapshot of the cheetah's presence, historic presence on the Indian subcontinent. Rock art from the Indus Valley, the Chambal Valley, and from Kharwai near Bhopal have paintings of an animal which may or may not be a cheetah. It's an open question. Ancient Greek and Roman writers and authors have mentioned that their ancient Indian counterparts used to hunt game animals with lions. Those lions may have, in fact, been cheetahs. Again, it's an open question. Uh, of course, the very word cheetah in English comes from the Sanskrit chitraka or chitrakaya, which means spotted one or spotted body. The association of the cheetah with India goes a long time back in history. We in India, in this subcontinent, have used this species for the sport of coursing or hunting game animals. In fact, the only animal other than the cheetah to be used in this way is the caracal, but more of that later. So the first historical text to give an idea of cheetahs being used by Indian nobility in the course of hunting is the Manasollasa, which is a text composed in the High Middle Ages and attributed to the Chalukyan king Someshwara III. It describes cheetah hunting with cheetahs in great detail. Uh, but the sport of coursing in India and in the subcontinent reached its apogee during the Muslim rule of the subcontinent. We have records which show that during the Delhi Sultanate period, Firoz Shah Tughlaq, who built Firoz Shah Kotla in Delhi, where we are sitting right now, he had several thousands of cheetahs under him, which he used to hunt game animals like antelope or hare. Uh, and followed by this, the cheetah reached its apogee in the subcontinent during the rule of the great Mughals, uh, Akbar and Jahangir, who took a very special interest in these animals. In fact, their court painters have vividly depicted cheetah hunts. Akbar at one time used to have 3,000 cheetahs under him. He also took a special interest in capturing them using special techniques which he improvised himself. Uh, uh, but the decline of the cheetah in India started with the ascent of the British in South Asia. The British used to hunt them as vermin or as for sport purposes. So indiscriminate was the slaughter that by 1939, the British naturalist Reginald Innes Pocock noted that the cheetah may have well disappeared from most of Hindustan. And finally, that brings me to the very last chapter in this very tragic saga, which is on a night in 1947, Maharaja Ramanuj Pratap Singh Deo of a small principality called Korea in today's Chhattisgarh shot dead 3 male cheetahs, uh, all of the same litter. These might have been the very last cheetahs in India, because after that, in the next 2 decades, there were only sporadic reports of sightings, but they may have well been stragglers. Uh, and the cheetah was officially declared extinct in 1952 in the newly formed Republic of India. So that's the historical background for the cheetah. Now, coming to you, Shuchita, tell us what this current cheetah reintroduction project is about, and what is so unique about it.
Hi, Rajat. Thank you for that wonderful insight into history. Yeah, so it is indeed a big day, and it is a unique project in many ways because, firstly, it is first transcontinental translocation that is happening like this. Never in the world has something for carnivore like this at such a grand level has happened. So yeah, it is a big day for India and also for conservation apparently. And another thing that makes this project unique is that it is for the first time ever that the cheetah conservation is happening in an unfenced area. So Vincent van der Merwe, who is with the Cheetah Metapopulation Initiative in South Africa, he told us that all the relocations, all the reintroductions that they have done in Africa itself have all been inside fenced parks because that mitigates the risk of human animal conflict. But this is for the very first time that they are being introduced into Kuno, which is not fenced. And there are two kinds of approaches that conservationists speak of. So the first one is called the fortress approach, which is widely practiced in South Africa, in which the area is fenced so that there is no intervention of humans inside the protected area. But in India, we have a more coexistence approach in which the humans and animals they live together. So maybe not to the extent that they used to at some point of time, but yeah, to some extent. So this is something that makes the Cheetah project unique, and it is also one of the reasons they are slightly worried because they do not know how the cheetahs will survive in an open location, and what will be the attitude of the locals towards them because also they have never seen cheetahs. So these animals are now have now traveled 9,000 kilometers in 11 hours. They started off at 6:40 South African time. So it was around 10 o'clock in India. And they arrived early morning. So it was an hour ago that they arrived in Gwalior. So now they'll be in Kuno in the next few minutes. And our Prime Minister is obviously going to launch them. So this is it's a very unique project, and experts say that if this becomes successful, it is going to be a project of global importance because India is going to set a template for such future conservation projects, even in unfenced areas. So all these doubts and all the speculations that are happening around it, which in their right are correct, will also, we'll have to see how it goes further now.
Mhm. Thank you for that perspective, Shuchita. Let me also put across another question. Many of our readers in the run up to this event, many of Down to Earth readers have also asked us that why haven't we taken Asiatic cheetahs from Iran, which are closer to Indian cheetahs? Rather, we are bringing in African cheetahs from Namibia and South Africa. Please explain why that is being done.
Okay, yeah, that's a valid question. So basically, the talks of introducing or reintroducing cheetahs in India is not new. In 1970s, India was talking to Iran to get them Asiatic cheetahs, but because of the change in regime in the Shah of Iran, he was overthrown. So the talks, the project, and everything what was finalized could not happen. And after that, the population of Iranian cheetahs it started deteriorating. It started there are hardly 50 cheetahs in the wild, Asiatic cheetahs left in the world now. So they are critically endangered. Uh, the African cheetahs, actually, there are 5 subspecies of cheetahs which are closely related. And the African subspecies that we are bringing in is it has the most wide population in South Africa. It's South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana. So when according to the IUCN guidelines, when a reintroduction takes place, it should not harm the host population. It should remain intact and its survival should not be compromised. So since this was the biggest number of cheetahs that was available in this jubatus subspecies, so that is the reason that is the only reason that we are bringing. We could have brought Asiatic cheetahs back had there been that many left. But since if there are only like less than 50 left in the wild, and if we bring a few of them to India, so their conservation in Iran itself would be hampered. So it's not going to be a conservation effort at all.
And may I add to what Shuchita said that this very year, Iran's environment minister Hassan Akbari has noted that there are perhaps less than 12 Asiatic cheetahs left in Iran, there may be 9 males and just 3 females. So yes, it's a very alarming situation for the Iranian cheetah, and moreover, the cheetah conservation scene in Iran has become embroiled in uh, uh, the politics of the Islamic Republic, and many of the cheetah conservationists there have been jailed. Uh, but we are not getting into that at the moment. Let me also ask you, Shuchita, what kind of landscape changes have been made in the Kuno National Park in the run-up to this event?
Yeah, so Kuno National Park is a big forest, and so they made a lot of changes because initially it was full of thorny bushes and stuff, which was not good enough for the survival of cheetahs. So they have planted a lot of palatable grasses like Primera, which will be used by the herbivores that can eat the grass, and the population of prey density will increase when they eat those palatable grasses. And also the removal of thorny bushes was important for the cheetahs because it helps them run faster and hunt the prey faster. So that was the landscaping changes that were made. They also made some watering holes so that the cheetahs have enough water to drink from. And initially, when the cheetahs will come, they will be kept in a 500 hectare enclosure. So this is just for monitoring purposes, and they will be let out in the wild after a few months once they have well adapted to the climate and the prey base and everything else in India. So this kind of release that we are practicing now in India in Kuno is called a soft release. So there are two kinds of releases when an animal is reintroduced into the wild. So for the first one is called hard release, where it is directly from the cage, it is directly put into the forest. So the chances of survival of the animals reduce in that because the animal has not gotten enough time to adapt. But the approach that we are taking is the soft approach, where the cheetahs will be able to see the surroundings from the enclosure. They will get to know each other also because they'll be kept in adjoining enclosures, and they will know how to hunt the prey within the base itself. They have also increased the prey density, like we spoke about earlier, and it will give the cheetahs enough window to acclimatize to the environment before they are let out into the wild. So yeah, these are the preparations that were done in Kulu. And one more thing I would like to add, that they have also set up watchtowers to monitor the cheetahs if they go into uncharted territories, and they can retrieve them and bring them back into the protected area, because that is something that we really need to do to ensure that the for initially 8 and then 12 cheetahs from South Africa, they are well protected in their natural environment.
A very important point, that which brings me to my next question, that what is the aim of this current cheetah reintroduction project? What does it I mean, it aims to establish a meta population of cheetahs in that area. Please
Right.
explain the details.
Yes, so India aims to establish a meta population of cheetahs in the next 15 years. So gradually, right now we are bringing 8 from Namibia, and then if everything goes right and we get to sign the memorandum of understanding with South Africa, so we'll get 12 more individuals from South Africa. And gradually, over the period of 15 years, we'll keep bringing immigrants from these two countries to ensure that there's a wide genetic pool. And we are aiming to have a founder population of at least 50 to 60 cheetahs, so that they can, start existing in their historic territories again. And like conservationists say, it is the cheetah is at the bottom rung of the 4 big cats. So it goes lions, tigers, leopards, and cheetahs. So now the bottom rung was missing so far from India for 70 years. So now it will be reestablished, and it will also come back with a lot of ecosystem services, as the experts are saying, that it will lead to grassland conservation. Some people don't agree with that, but yeah, that is another another debate. We'll get into that later on.
So that brings me to my next question, Suchita. Why? I mean, there has been a lot of talk about the presence of leopards in Kuno National Park, and the associated problems that has, for this project vis-a-vis leopards. If you could explain to our viewers what the exact problem was and how did the project planners deal with that problem?
Yeah, so there was a problem with leopards because the leopard density in Kuno is very high. There are so Kuno is spread in around 750, a little more than 750 hectares, square kilometers, sorry, and the leopard density is around 9 per 100 square kilometers. So which means around 60 to 70 leopards roughly, and the cheetahs that we are bringing in are very small in number. So firstly, the leopards in India, they have not seen cheetahs like us, so they do not know how to deal with the bottom rung predator. So it is also a competing predator for them. So it is obviously going to be a problem because there's the same prey base and two big cats are competing. Then this is a new. Stop. So yeah, so the predator, the two predators may be competing, and there may be instances of conflict within the two. Yeah, so there may be instances of conflict within the two, which is very, very much likely. The experts have also factored this into their cheetah action plan. But at the same time, we hope that there are not many mortalities of the cheetahs because they are so few in number, and they will still take time to adjust. So the problem that the national park authorities were facing was there were 6 leopards inside the enclosure. So while they were constructing the enclosure, they had been trapped inside, and it was a very big task for them to so it was a very big task for them to get them out of the enclosure so that the cheetahs do not face the heat of it right as they arrive. So they got 3 of them out. Then for the other 3, they had to get two elephants from Satpura. Yeah, so they helped in removing. They helped in locating the leopards. They tranquilized them and then left them into the wild. So of late, what I was aware of, that there was still one subadult left inside, but it was not much of a threat. So I do not know if it has been taken out or if it is still there. So yeah, so the competition and the conflict with the leopards was a big issue for the park authority.
I would also like to add to what Suchita has said, that in Africa, where the lion, leopard, and cheetah share space, the cheetah, the leopard, the lion, and the hyena, the spotted hyena, the great predator of Africa, are basically sympatric predators, which means that they and the cheetah share the same ecological niche, right? What has been the experience in Africa? Is there any impact of these predators on cheetah populations in any way? And what are their interactions with the cheetah in
Yes.
Africa?
So, okay. So there are two things that happen. That hyenas, firstly, they kill cheetah cubs. So yes, they obviously interfere with the population in Africa also. And this is one thing that remains to be seen in Kuno, because Kuno is also, we have striped hyenas, not the spotted ones like Africa, but the striped ones. So this may be a possibility that once they are let into the wild and once they start breeding, if they start breeding, the cubs may be taken away by the hyenas, which will obviously hinder the growth of the population in Kuno also. And there is one other thing that, when a cheetah, hyenas are basically, they scavenge on the prey killed by bigger animals, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So so when
well,
the
if I
cheetah,
may add that that is there is a bit of a problem there, because many conservationists would argue that hyenas do kill their own kill as well, make their own kill as well. But yes, the popular perception is that they are scavengers. But
yeah,
continue.
they also snatch away the prey that is hunted by a big cat. So that also may be a problem later on. But right now, the bigger problem is on the about them eating away or killing their babies. So if the cubs are killed, then yeah, of course it will it will be problematic.
If I may ask, what are which predators, carnivores are found in Kuno at the moment?
Yeah, so apart from leopards, we have striped hyenas, jackals, and sloth bears majorly. There are some few more, but yeah, these are the top tier ones.
Okay. If let me come to the controversial question, the controversial topic that you were mentioning just a few moments back. Critics say that, or have said in media coverage, in media discourse, that this may not bring grassland. This may not revive grasslands in India as is being touted. Uh, is that true?
Yeah, so in India, grasslands are still categorized as wastelands. So on one hand, we are talking about the conservation of grasslands, and on the second hand, we are not even, bothering to remove them from the category of wastelands. So yeah, it is controversial, and many experts like Dr. Vanak from A3 and Mr. Ravi Chellam. So they have their opinions saying that till such time we do not actually acknowledge that grasslands are not wastelands, and we don't stop converting them into solar parks and stuff to make them useful, the conservation will not really be impacted. And also the meta population that we're aiming to establish is just 50 to 60 cheetahs, which is not a big population in itself. So yeah, it may appear to be one thing on the face, but it may or may not lead to grassland conservation. So yeah, that is a debate that is going on big time. And yeah, so since the other species of grasslands like the great Indian bustard, Lesser florican, etc., they are on the verge of extinction in India. So had we been aware about grassland conservation, this situation would not have arrived in the first place.
Right. If I may ask, Shuchita, as we still wait for the coverage, okay, I think as we still wait for the visuals from the Doordarshan of the Prime Minister releasing the cheetahs from Kuno, if I may ask, what is the entire controversy regarding cheetahs and Asiatic lions in Kuno? If you could shed some light on that.
Okay, so in 2013, the Supreme Court of India had ordered for the relocation of Asiatic lions into Kuno, for which it was initially prepared, and the villagers were relocated for the Asiatic lions. But that project did not take off because the Gujarat government was not willing to, All right, so that aside, so after 7 years of that order, the Supreme Court then finally allowed for the cheetahs to come into Kuno. So yeah, so many conservationists say that once the cheetahs are already there, it will not be possible for the rehabilitation or relocation of lions into Kuno. But not everybody agrees with that, because they are planning the bigger plan in the next maybe 20-25 years is to have all 4 cats in one place, so which will include Asiatic lions and tigers as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we are getting live visuals from Didi. No, we are still waiting. And may I add to what Shuchita has just said, that once the cheetahs are released today, India will have 5 big cats, perhaps even 6. The Asiatic lion, the Bengal tiger, the leopard, the cheetah, the snow leopard, and the clouded leopard also, if you would categorize it as a big cat. Well, we are still awaiting visuals from Kuno. But Shujita, if I may also ask you something more controversial, what is the difference between African and Asiatic cheetahs genetically? Is there any scholarly consensus on, are they genetically similar, or are they distinct species genetically?
Yeah, so the 5 species of cheetahs are said to be genetically similar because cheetahs went through a bottleneck around 10 to 20,000 years ago. That means only a very few individuals remain that could propagate the population further. So that means all the cheetahs that we have right now are genetically similar. All the 5 species, the genetic distance between them is almost equal. So yeah, so of course there are differences, but the differences are not very huge. So this is another point where scholars disagree, and they also say that it is, some also say that it is the introduction of an exotic species in India instead of a reintroduction, because we are not bringing the same subspecies of the cheetah. So yeah, it remains to be seen how these African cheetahs will adapt. Also, there was this debate going on that why did we not choose another of these 4 the 4 that were left? Why did we choose only jubatus? So that is because the population is the highest. So there was no contention as to which one to bring. It was only based on population because they're all genetically alike.
Right. And if I may ask, was Kuno the first choice for this particular project, or were other sites also considered?
Yeah, so experts had they surveyed 10 sites in Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Madhya Pradesh, obviously. But finally, because Kuno required the least amount of preparations, it was already prepared for Asiatic lions. So they do not have to, relocate several villages from inside Kuno. They had already relocated 24. So only three more were left, which who actually volunteered themselves out, and they're pretty happy about it. I personally spoke to them in when I went to Kuno. Now, the other thing was that so parks like Nora Dehi, Mukundara, and other tiger reserves in Rajasthan were also being considered. But then Kuno took priority because it is an open grassland. It is a big grassland spreading about 6,000 square kilometers. I mean, not just the protected area, even outside the protected area. So it was a big area. And since cheetah need a lot of space, so that is why this was also one of the reasons that it was considered. And of course, the preparations had already begun from the time of the Asiatic lions. So so the amount of effort required here was lesser than it would have been at any other place. But right now, once the meta population establishes itself in Kuno, they are planning to make a breeding center in some other not exactly a breeding center. They are also planning to establish smaller meta populations in Noradihi Wildlife Sanctuary, maybe in Mukundra also. So that all depends upon how these two individuals, the pilot project, how it goes further.
Well, as we still await visuals from Kuno, let me also add some interesting trivia to what as we have just discussed, that the area where Kuno is right now is was the former hunting ground in imperial hunting grounds of the princely state of Gwalior, and before it went over to the Marathas, the area around Gwalior and Kuno were basically part of the Mughal Empire. And the Mughal Empire, if you would be interested to know that they used to source cheetahs from various parts of their empire, various territories. They used to capture them, they used to tame them and use them in the sport of coursing. So the area where Kuno is right now, it also includes a place called Alapur, according to Divya Bhanu Singh's book End of a Trail: The Cheetah in India. And it was Alapur was a major uh, recruiting ground, if so to say, for cheetahs for the empire. And although the bulk came from Rajputana or Rajasthan as it is right now. Shujita, if I may also ask, you during the course of this entire event, in the run up to this event, you also traveled to Kuno and filed a ground report from there for Down to Earth. If I may ask, what is the ground situation in Kuno right now?
Okay, so right now the situation would have drastically changed because when we went, it was raining very heavily. The downpour was, it was really hampered our work. And so firstly, the preparations in Kuno were going on. The security was very strict, and we were just allowed to a certain extent and not further than that because a lot of things were going on, and a lot of rumors had also started spreading, so which were not really conducive to the project. There were also reports which said that Mr. Ramaphosa of Cyril Ramaphosa of South America, the president, South Africa, sorry, the president had was reconsidering the project because of all the rumors going on in India. There were also the most interesting thing that I found there was that the locals had their own. They were living in their own world. Some of them were happy who were aware about the project. They were like, yeah, it will boost tourism in the place, and it is going to help our kids have better opportunities in the future because the Seheria tribe, the places around Kuno and inside the villages have been relocated, but these are very distant and remote villages which get cut off from the world when it rains or whenever something, some natural calamity or something, not exactly calamity, but yeah, anything, any extreme event happens, and they get they get cut off from the world. So even for smallest of things, they have to travel 10 to 12 kilometers, which is not really feasible for them. So even when we went, we found roadblocks, like, the roads were dotted with fallen trees. We could not reach our destinations. There was another stream that had, overflown above the bridge and broken the small bridge. So we could not reach that village either. So the few that we could talk to were very happy that the cheetahs are coming, and it is going to boost tourism in their places. But there was this one lady that I met. Her name was Bekunthi, I think. So she said that, yeah, so the lions have already eaten the cheetahs; they're not coming anymore. So there were all sorts of things going on, and yeah, they were pretty excited. So it was a good trip.
Okay. May I also ask you, you mentioned the Seheria tribe, and uh, the area around Kuno, yes, it's home to the Seheria tribe, and also Dalit communities like the Jatavs. Uh, what is the current condition of the Seheria tribe in that area? And what, as you said, that they were relocated. If you could give us a brief snapshot of what happened. I believe they were relocated originally for Asiatic lions. So if you could tell us a bit about the backstory of what happened actually with these people.
Right. So the relocation had already started happening from 98 to 2002. So this was even before the Supreme Court had ordered the lions to be relocated there. So the Seheria tribe, the 24 villages of Seheria tribes were gradually located outside the protected area, because there were several concerns that it was interfering with protection and stuff like that. So they were also, for their own safety, they were relocated. So initially there were a lot of issues that were raised, that they were not given proper compensation and all. But when I spoke to them on the ground, most of them had been compensated for. There was one issue that was going on, that after the people came to know that more relocation is going to happen, some people who were not really the tribal people, and who were not even of that part of the village, they started coming and residing there. So just to maybe in case we also get a piece of land. But yeah, that didn't really happen, because they were very thorough with the investigation, and who all have been living here. So only those people who are genuinely affected should be compensated. But most of the people, like I spoke to you, there was this village which is just 2 kilometers from Kuno. So it is also a very remote village. And these people, although they are not affected, they are not inside the national park, they still want to be in a more populous and a more, what do you call, market-centric part of Shiopu. Because right now they do not have schools, they do not have proper hospitals. For every little thing, they have to rush to, 10, 15 kilometers, even for groceries. So yeah, they are facing a lot of problems. But then again, this is from the lens that we see. They are tribals and they have their own lifestyle also. So it is not going to be right to say that, this is what they should be given, because they have their own culture, their own lifestyle. And one thing that was very interesting was that even right now they use medicinal herbs to, as the barter system still continues. So they go to, suppose there's a small ration store or a small general store. So they pick the herbs, the medicinal herbs from the forests. They go, and in exchange for the herbs, they get some groceries like oil or chawal or stuff like that. So the barter system still continues. So that is also a way of their life. So saying that rehabilitation is going to be fruitful or good for them from the lenses that we see may not exactly be correct. But yeah, when they tell you the same thing, that yeah, we do not have any proper amenities for us, our lifestyle is not good, then it makes you think. So it is a very broad issue, and maybe this is it's a very small time to discuss this.
Very true, very true. Let me also bring in here that another interesting point, that this is not the first transcontinental relocation of a carnivore per se. Yes, of the cheetah, yes, not of a carnivore. That record would go to the experiment that the Maharaja of Gwalior did. I believe it was Srimant Madhav Rao, or Madhav Maharaj as he is called. He brought African lions from Ethiopia and the Sudan to reared them and released them in the forests around Kuno and Sheopur, where these places are right now. Unfortunately and tragically, those lions turned out to be cattle lifters and man eaters, and were eventually shot. Uh, however, this particular now with this this experiment that the government of India has started, we I mean, what the government envisions is that there will one day be all four big cats in Kuno: the lion, the tiger, the leopard, and the cheetah. Because the tigers, the Kuno is very near to the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve in neighboring Rajasthan. So there can always be an instance of tigers coming to Kuno, crossing over to Kuno from Ranthambore. Uh, uh, can there be coexistence of all four predators in one single protected area?
So it is there in Africa. I mean, it is, maybe it's not there in India yet, but the four cats, they survive. The four cats, they survive together because they have different niches. They are in the same ecosystem, but they have different niches. Like Mr. Divyabhanu Singh was only telling me one day that so the cheetahs, the lions, they prefer more of open grasslands because they hunt in a, they are gregarious. They hunt in a pride. Tigers, on the other hand, they hunt solo, so they can also survive. They can very well hunt in dense forests as well. So they are equally accustomed to forests or grasslands, and sometimes they prefer, denser jungles. So the two, even if they live in the same landscape, they hardly interact, and even if they do, they have their own, niches. So ilakas. Right. So yeah, the same happens for the other two as well. That leopards, they are very what do you say, adaptable. So they can exist in human inhabited areas. They can exist on mountains and forests and everywhere. While cheetah prefers open grasslands, but it is not limited to it. They can also survive very well in forests and stuff, which also Dr. Jhala and our PCCF, J.S. Chauhan, the PCCF of MP, he also told us that it is because we have seen footages from savanna grasslands in Africa, so we associate the cheetah only with grasslands. But that is not it. It survives everywhere also. But when the four big cats are there, so they have their own niches divided, and the possibility of conflict always exists because there are animals. They are animals. They are all predators. So yeah, it always exists, but not to the point of extinction threat. The cheetah was extinct because of human activities, not because it coexisted with other animals. Exactly. Right? So it was humans. So maybe once we bring it back, experts say that Dr. Jhala was saying that once the cheetahs are here and they are well established, there's the possibility of bringing Asiatic lions and our Bengal tigers also in Kuno. So probably it will turn into a landscape where with all four big cats. Right now they are just leopards. So this absence of the two top predators was also one of the factors that made Kuno a worthwhile choice, because the threat of conflict was lesser. There was just leopard. So they only had to deal with leopards. So initially, when the cheetahs will be there, so there may be mortalities or conflicts and stuff, but at least the lions and tigers are not there. So the bigger threats have been excluded. They are just, it's a safer side than the rest. Mukundra also has just one tigress left, which is, it's a tiger reserve, but it only has one tigress. So it was also considered. But then again, considering all the investment and preparations and that had already gone into Kuno, they just wanted to. Also, the locals were very excited about the Asiatic lions, but they never came. So the motivation to protect the national park was also, it was going down. So they needed something. So this was also one of the reasons that they said, okay, because it is already prepared, the relocation from the of the villages has already been done. So let us finalize this one, and then of course the meta populations can be established elsewhere also.
Right. May I add to what Suchita has said, and this whole concept of this whole perception rather that very large megafauna like tigers and lions can't survive is in fact completely false. If you look at historical records dating back to as recently as the 19th century, you have lions and tigers in northern, northwestern, central India coexisting, cohabiting together. In fact, Down to Earth itself has written and come out with stories of academic papers which have come out in this very year, which show that lions and tigers used to coexist in these areas, but because they inhabited their own ecological niches, uh, uh, it was not all a doomsday scenario as is commonly thought. And if if I may turn to the next point, Shuchita, what about the prey base in Kuno? It has been. I have myself interviewed some people who have said that there is no black buck, there is no chinkara in Kuno. What will the cheetahs who have been brought subsist on? Of course, now we have seen that cheetal or spotted deer have been brought from Narsigad and Pench. But in the long run, how will they be able to subsist on what is right now a rather reduced prey base?
Okay, so all right, so like you said that around 200 238 cheetahs have already been brought and kept inside the enclosure for the for the cheetahs, and in the future they are planning to bring 300 more. So 3 to 400 more, depending upon how they are, how much they hunt. Because of course, like you said, that in South Africa they hunt a different kind of prey. Here they have never hunted cheetahs, so the cheetahs, they hunt smaller ungulates, and cheetah is one of them, which it can easily hunt. So we are hoping that it will survive. It will adapt to hunting the cheetahs. The population, the prey base has already been increased in the national park. The prey base was already there, but to ensure that it remains intact for the future, they have brought in more. So right now, as per the cheetah action plan, Kuno can support 21 grown cheetahs according to the prey base that they have so far. So which is what we are planning to bring. We are bringing 20 from 8 from Namibia and 12 from South Africa. So it will initially it may not be a problem, but then once if it does, so that is also one of the reasons they have introduced the palatable grasses, and also that the chinkaras also, sorry, the cheetahs also reproduce and have more babies, so that the cheetahs can eat. Then there was one other factor, that a lot of stray cattle is there in Kuno because of the villages that were rehabilitated. They all used to keep cows and goats and stuff. So the cattle, especially cows and old cows, still remain in Kuno itself because it's kind of emotional because once the people had gone out, the cows did not know where to go home. Mm-hmm. So they used to come back to those same old houses. So they are still there. They are stray, but they are still there, and they're also reproducing, but the leopards eat their young. So the older ones, which are weak and frail, maybe the cheetah will hunt them. That is also one of the factors that has written in the cheetah action plan, that it may also prove to be a good prey base for them because they're all weak and old. So yeah, probably. So for now, they are set for the next few years. Mm-hmm. But yeah, gradually, because they will also be moving the cheetahs out into places which have a higher prey base. So they also eat animals like rodents, which are there in abundance in Kuno, and they are found irrespective of the landscape. They are found everywhere. So it should not be a problem. But in case there is, then of course the wildlife department will have to look into that.
If I may ask, why were South Africa and Namibia selected as the source countries for this particular project?
Because the 3 countries together and 2 more, mm-hmm. The 6 countries together support a population of around 4,000 cheetahs. So if we remove a few individuals, the population inside the host countries will not be affected. That is one of the reasons that we selected these 3 countries and not others, because there are around 7,100 cheetahs left in the wild, and the other countries, they have some have around 300 400 cheetahs, some have in 2 digits. So Africa itself as a continent is trying to make meta populations within the continent itself. There are a lot of inter-country translocations that are happening, like it did in Malawi, it did in Mozambique. So they are trying to increase the population within Africa itself, so that the cheetah does not go extinct, like it like the Asiatic ones. So since this was the highest available population, and bringing a few individuals here would not hamper the original population, that is the one of the major reasons that we selected we chose Namibia and South Africa as the host countries.
And in fact, if I may add to that, a recent program on the BBC quoted the chief veterinarian officer of South Africa as saying that they had so many cheetahs that they were in fact thinking of neutering some of them. So yes, basically this will also create a meta population in India. So in the future, if there is a scarcity of or reduction in numbers in Africa, maybe we could get cheetahs from India to Africa, a reverse
kind of scenario, right?
Right,
Exactly.
right.
If it ever happens, so God forbid, but if it ever happens.
And if I may ask, you mentioned the villages around Kuno have livestock. In fact, you also mentioned that this is the first time that cheetahs would be kept in an unfenced environment. Now, as far as I know, cheetahs have the ability to range over long distances, which is why I think South Africa has kept them in fences, in the private game reserves within fences.
It is a law in South Africa to keep all the endangered wildlife animals in one in a fenced environment, because like we spoke, they practice fortress conservation instead of coexistence. So it is a law there. It is not just because of the cheetahs, it is for all the endangered animals, that if there is a national park, if they are in their natural habitat and protected area, so it has to be fenced, so that there's less because in African countries, I am not very sure about South Africa, but poaching for bushmeat is also one of the concerns, which is not a concern in India. So yeah, we have snaring for bushmeat, but we have poaching, but not killing for bushmeat in India, because it is not allowed. In many of the countries, the big cats are many. I mean, bushmeat is permitted. It is legal to eat bushmeat. So that was one of the reasons that they may have started the fortress conservation, so that this is the protected area and you cannot hunt within it, maybe outside but not inside. So so this is the fortress conservation kind of thing. And in India, their major concern is that suppose the cheetahs, they wander into the villages. So of course they run fast and they have a big range. So if after the population starts increasing, or even initially when they go outside the protected areas and maybe attack the goats or sheep, because not many people they do not attack big cattle, but goats or sheep would be their major prey if they wander into the villages. So the attitude of the locals is also one of the major concerns that the experts have, because suppose if the cheetah kills somebody's cattle, if they kill goats, and what if the person retaliates? What if it kills the cheetah in return? So this is one scenario that they are anticipating. So for that, India has a compensation scheme. India has a compensation scheme for the people who keep livestock. So if their animal is hunted down by a wild animal, they are compensated for. So they are relying on this India's efficient compensation scheme, so that in case something like this happens in future, they are able to pay it off and keep the cheetahs safe. So the tolerant, for this, there is another interesting thing that is happening. So Ministry of Environment and Forests, it has started a Cheetah Mitra Sammelan. So in the schools across India, it is training, it is spreading awareness about cheetahs. It is, telling students, how the cheetah went extinct, its history, a little about its diet, about it, the habitat it survives in. And all this awareness which was not there earlier, because we have our generation and also the ones before us, we have not, for 70 years we have not seen cheetahs, so nobody knew what kind of environment they live in, what kind of things they eat. People were actually they're totally caught off guard. So this Cheetah Mitra Sammelan has been happening to spread awareness and to create a more tolerant, create more tolerance among the locals. So the MP government, the Regional Museum of Natural History, in from September 9 to 16, they conducted such programs also in Shiopur, and they took the students to visit Palpur, and there they trained them, and not trained exactly, they help them understand what the cheetah is, how to take care of it. This is just to inculcate tolerance among the locals, so that in case something happens, in case they kill the cattle or they kill the goats and stuff, so they do not retaliate and kill them in return.
Right. Well, if I may add, that fortress conservation is an extremely controversial approach amongst conservationists. But yeah, like you said, in India, we have a mechanism of providing compensation to people for wildlife kills. More than that, I would say that the intrinsic cultural attitudes of Indians towards wildlife and reverence for wildlife would perhaps in a way stand the cheetah in good stead once it arrives in Kuno.
That is what we are hoping for. Because also the tribal cultures, they like the Begas, they consider tigers to be their brothers. They do not kill tigers, they do not attack them, and even if the tiger it kills a family member or turns into a man eater, they do not retaliate because they know that it's an animal, it will do what it is meant for. So they do not turn into animals themselves. And they also, there's this very funny funny, what do you say, belief that they say that it is when you, the day that you take a bath, you are more prone to a tiger attack. So I don't know how true that is. This is their this is their belief. And belief, or maybe it's just a rumor that they just keep propagating.
Well, if I may add to that, the Idu Mishmis of Arunachal Pradesh in Northeast India are very famous because in this case, because they believe that the tiger to be their grandfathers. Sociologist or an expert Ambika Ayyadurai has uh, uh, extensively researched on this topic in her book The Tiger is Our Brother. And of course there are umpteen other examples. For instance, the deity Vaghoba, which basically is the deification of tigers or leopards. Is the worship of Vaghoba is quite prevalent in Maharashtra, in Western India, among tribal communities. So yes, we have a number of instances of uh, uh, cultural reverence towards wildlife. We should, I think we can hope that that would stand the new arrivals in Kuno in good stead. But also, I would like to know there when did this whole project start? I believe from what I have read in media reports, it started somewhere around 2009, I believe.
Yes.
If you could shed light on that.
Right. So Dr. Jhala and Mr. M.K. Ranjit Singh, they researched because the hope for getting Asiatic lions had already been chopped off. So they just wanted to have somebody, some subspecies of the cheetah in India. So they researched extensively and in 2009 and submitted a report. And the then for the Minister of Environment and Forest, Jairam Ramesh, he was also very pro bringing African cheetahs to India, but that could not take off because in 2013.
Well, I may just interrupt you. We are getting live visuals of Prime Minister Modi from Kuno National Park. He's accompanied by Shivraj Singh Chauhan, the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh.
The cheetahs into the wild. Could this be a better day?
Right. So there he is. He is opening the doors for the cheetahs. Yeah, there they are. They are out. They have been released.
Into his camera, we have the Prime Minister.
So this
releasing the cheetahs.
The cheetahs have been released into the enclosure.
It is in fact a historic.
So the enclosure, that is the 500-hectare enclosure, and here they will be kept for the next 2-3 months. till such time they adapt well. The vets from Namibia will also be there to ensure that they are well taken care of, they're adapting well in case there is an emergency or medical assistance that they need. So the Africa the experts are already here, and they will continue staying here for maybe the next 2-3 months till such time the cheetahs are not released into the wild. So the male and the female coalitions will be kept in adjoining but separate fences, separate enclosures, and the males will be released into the wild first, so that they do not stray further. So when the females are already there in the enclosure, the males are bound to come back because they will already have gotten to know each other by then. So this is what they are hoping for. And once the males have established their territories, they have adapted well, only if they have adapted well will the females will be released into the wild. So it will all depend upon how the males adapt after 2-3 months. So there's also one quarantine center that has been made in Kuno, where they will be monitored very extensively for the first few weeks. Their temperatures will be taken, their health will be monitored, and after they have adapted, the monitoring will be reduced to maybe 2-3 once in 2 days or something like that. But right now they are going to be under surveillance, they're going to be monitored very carefully to ensure that they are adapting to the new atmosphere. It is a big moment for India, and of course the authorities in Puno. They have Mr. Prakash Verma, who is the DFO there. He was very excited about it, and he was telling us that they have ensured all sorts of preparations. They've tried to get rid of all the loopholes to ensure that this project gets successful. And now that they are finally here, I can imagine how excited they all must be.
It's indeed a historic moment for India, especially for its conservation scene. I also read this morning that if the experts in charge of the project believe that if the females manage to produce litters in 6 months' time, it will mean that the population has established itself, right?
Right, exactly. So cheetahs are very delicate, and they only reproduce in when they have a conducive environment. So if they reproduce, even if 2 out of the 5 females are able to have litters in the next 6 months to 1 year, it will mean that they are adapting well. It will mean that they want to propagate the population here, and so that will be a very definitive sign. And also for the F1 generation, the ones that will be born after this one, they will also be radio collared and monitored, so that they also they do not stray into villages and stuff, and so that they are monitored properly, because monitoring the first few generations is going to be a big task, and it needs to be done so that there's no threat to the cheetahs. They are all the cheetahs are wearing satellite collars. I think it is clear in the visual also. So these collars will help the authorities of the park track the cheetahs, and in case they wander off outside the protected area, they're going to be retrieved.
Shuchita, before we cut across to these visuals, you were talking about Jairam Ramesh and what had happened back in 2009. If you could just continue.
So in 2013, they had sought the permission of the Supreme Court to bring in the African subspecies of the cheetah, but back then the IUCN also did not have a lot of guidelines about introducing the subspecies. That it came in 2013 itself, and by the time the Supreme Court had already said that this is a foreign species, so you cannot bring it. So in 2019, these experts, they approached the Supreme Court again, saying, citing more facts, saying that they are genetically similar, and putting all the facts forward, also citing the IUCN guidelines, saying that it is possible for us to we have studied well, and it has been a well thought through project. So if you can give us the permission. So it was only after that in January 2020, that the Supreme Court gave the green signal for bringing the cheetahs. The preparations in Kuno then began a year later, and they were also because of downpour and floods in Shivpuri and Shivpur last year. It was delayed also for quite a long time, but then they started.
I believe the pandemic as well played a role.
Yeah, the pandemic also played a role, because the travel restrictions were there, so the experts could not travel back and forth. But once they were lifted, the experts, then the team from Kuno National Park, they also went to receive the training to look after the cheetahs, how to, give them tranquilizers, how to measure their body temperatures and stuff, the diets and everything. So they learned about all these things from the experts in Namibia and Africa in May this year. Also in February and in May this year. And then the experts also arrived here to train them further. And now it is the big day that they have already come.
Yeah, so it's a big day. It's a historic day. After 70 years, this beautiful feline is back on Indian soil. Uh, whether it uh, survives and thrives is something that remains to be seen. Uh, mm, Everybody, all stakeholders involved in this will be watching this very closely. But let's hope that whatever happens, uh, uh, India's it will set a new precedent for conservation in India, and perhaps a template, as you have said, for the world as well. With that, I think we should now take your leave. Uh, Watch this space in the months to come. But for now, it's goodbye from the both of us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.